Dear Mr. Breslin, I was a little girl when it happened to me. I was sexually assaulted by a family member, and I did what I was supposed to do. I told someone and logically felt that I would be protected and safe. However, that is not what happened. I remained in the environment, and the second time was much more violent and brutal. Being 48 years old, I realize now how difficult it is for anyone to hear that story of a 10-year-old innocent girl with the world at her feet, saying that someone had done something so awful. I realize that while the thought of someone touching a child is frightening, when it's not your child or you, it seems pretty far removed. Until you hear more stories, until you begin publicly speaking about your experience and friends begin telling you their stories. In hearing the details, all of the puzzle pieces fit. The depression, the anger, the low self-esteem, the alcoholism and drug addiction, the sense of screaming out loud for help by the dysfunction you live, only to have people call you a loser, a waste, a nobody, and worst of all, a liar. Sexual abuse is a lifetime affliction. A harmless touch can trigger emotions that are so similar to the experience you had that it feels like you're reliving it. If you read about a sexual predator or pedophile getting 4 years in prison for raping a child, you cry and sob uncontrollably, and no one understands why. When male bosses try to tell you what to do, you see that as a man trying to take control of you, and you become highly combative. A lifetime of therapy helps you find the tools to deal with this everyday occurrence, but it doesn't cure the effects. It does nothing to take away that someone put their hands on you when you were a child. Once you become a mom, you imagine your own child and what you would do if you found out someone had done this to them. You ask yourself, could this really happen to my child? And then you answer, of course it could, because it happened to me. Mr. Breslin, I ask you these questions as a human being, not as chairman of the board for Michigan State University. If this were your daughter, how far would you go to make sure this never happened again? If this were your daughter, how angry would you be? If this were your daughter, would you not believe her or minimize her experience by telling her, well, he only touched you. That's not so bad. If this were your daughter, how far would you go? Would you try to find the right words to protect your place on the board? Or would you try to find the right words and actions to protect your daughter and to let her know that you've got her back and to let other victims and future students know you have theirs? One thing that we as victims and survivors struggle with is when those who were part of what took place never hold themselves accountable. It makes what happened to us feel invalid and makes us question our own understanding of what took place. It's time for once for someone to be a human being, for someone to do the right thing, despite the consequences to self. I hope that this moment happens for you. Victims and survivors really need to know that we are validated, believed, and protected. I beg of you, Mr. Breslin, for your daughter and for your school, do the right thing and understand that whatever it is that you choose to do is what you would choose to do if this were your daughter. Thank you.